Part 63. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 623. Sir. Boss. Karma shouted through the communicator, but there was no response at all. Everyone in the entire fleet looked at each other. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan's communication devices were unable to communicate with each other in just a short distance of 5,000 kilometers. The quantum entanglement of the quantum communicator is obviously still intact, but there is no response at all. It's impossible. The soldier in charge of communication kept debugging anxiously. But there was still no response. Is it possible that Nejuo deceived you? Mok said solemnly. You are the one who lied to me. How could the old monster do such a thing? Kama pointed at his head. The uncomfortable emotion flashed across Mok's eyes, and although he tolerated it for the moment, there's no telling what he would do if the news about Jia Yan didn't come again. The entire fleet was shaken just because Jia Yan's communication message was temporarily interrupted. It can be seen that although Jia Yan, a leader who does not take care of things, has a strong deterrent, what is his status in this giant mosquito fleet? Fortunately, this was just the beginning. Although the entire fleet was a little shaken at this moment, no one believed that something unexpected would happen to Jia Yan, so after Kama said a few words, everyone calmed down. The boss must be fine. Wait, Suao has been with us for so long. He can't possibly harm the boss, $sigma chang $sigma feng $sigma wen $sigma shui, www.cfwx.ne square root T said to himself. And in the area of the clouds. Huh? Why can't the communication reach Kama? Jia Yan also noticed this abnormality. Sir, this is how it is here. Did I forget to tell you? Alas, it's all my fault for being too old. Suao seemed to have discovered his mistake. Jia Yan looked into the other person's eyes lightly, but he didn't notice anything unusual. If I fly higher, I can contact Kama and the others, right? Well. Jia Yan wanted to try flying upward, but when he reached a certain height, his whole body shook. How is it possible? What is this? His body was unable to rise. Now Jia Yan was really surprised in his heart. Sir, I remember that I told you when we first met that the mysterious place I know is impossible to fly. That's why I was happy to see that you were a flying creature, but I don't knowing that your strength will improve so quickly. Of course, the stronger you are, the greater your help will be to our trip, Suao said honestly. You. Jia Yan tried to fly towards the back of where he came from. However, he looked behind him with some confusion. Although the entire area was illuminated by scale stones on the ground, it could only illuminate an area of about 1 kilometer in radius. The area further away felt foggy. Jia Yan tried to fly back, while Suao waited in place. Not long after, Jia Yan flew back with a feeling of coldness in his heart. Suao, what do you mean? He looked at Suao, the look in his eyes was extremely cold, as if the other person would kill him if he couldn't say the right thing. Sir, I really don't have any ill intentions towards you. I just want to live, so I hid certain things from you. I'm sorry. Suao's old face still showed an extremely calm expression. It seems that they are two different creatures from the crazy Suao before. In Jia Yan's opinion, no matter how you look at it, the original Suao is cuter. The reason why his heart was cold was because when he returned before, he couldn't find the way back in the fog. His sense of direction disappeared in this area. You must know that Jia Yan could not tell the direction of the Earth in the starry sky. He once flew back to the Earth from Mars, but in this small area, he could not tell the direction of the Earth. Be lost. Tell me, what are you hiding from me, and what is the purpose of letting me come here? Although the murderous intention in Jia Yan's heart is strong, he must get useful information from the other party at this moment. Knowing the magic of this mysterious area, even his sense of direction is problematic. If there is really danger, then he might actually be in danger. Sir, I really don't hide much from you. First of all, I am not the only one who has been to this mysterious place. However, the beings who came in with me are all dead. They were killed by me. He Suao said lightly. Killed by you, the shock in Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed away. Yes, I was killed. There is one more thing I want to hide from you. I am not here looking for a life-renewing stone. If you want a life-renewing stone, you can find many in the outside world besides here. I'm here. What we really want to find here is something even more magical. Let me keep it a secret for now, and you will know it when you see it. Suao's expression became even calmer. Haha, do you think I will still cooperate with you at this point? Do you think I won't kill you and find a way out on my own? Jia Yan's huge mosquito body gently took a step forward. The entire space seemed to vibrate due to his step, and most of the surrounding fog dissipated, but it quickly condensed back together. You won't kill me, because if you find a way to escape by yourself, it will take you who knows how long, and you might even find yourself dead, but there is no way out. And Suao's faint voice had a different meaning, and along with his words, a sense of energy gradually emerged in his body. And you shouldn't be able to kill me. But I am also surprised by your strength. If you fight for a long time, I, an old man, will probably be dragged to death by you. But in this area now, I can escape into the fog, but you won't be able to find me, he said calmly. Jia Yan felt a sense of surprise and uncertainty in his heart at the pressure of Suao's strength. Under his observation, Suao's strength actually increased directly to the peak of the starry sky at the speed of a train, and there was even a faint feeling of breaking through the shackles of the starry sky level. Not the peak of the starry sky, not the star level. Are you a starry sky level venerable? Jia Yan asked with some uncertainty. Haha, I can't be called a venerable anymore. My current strength may not even be comparable to the weakest starry sky level venerable, Suao said with a faint smile. Jia Yan was silent for a while, and he finally understood that Suao had been hiding his strength under his nose. If the other party tried to kill him when he was weak, he might have died countless times. And it seems that some of Jia Yan's secrets may have been seen by the other party. Master Jia Yan, don't worry. Although I lied to you a little, my old age is true, and the crazy state I fell into before did not lie to you. Thank you for taking care of me. Although what happened at that time, I can't remember most of it. Suao's words seemed to dispel Jia Yan's concerns. Jia Yan couldn't believe what he said now. Okay, then tell me, what do you want and what do you want me to do? Jia Yan slowly flew not far from the other party's body. Suao stepped back a little distance without moving. Sir, you should understand that as a star-level peak existence, the only thing you want is to break through the realm. For me, only breaking through the realm can make me not hesitate to offend a strong person like you. I have to take the risk. So the thing I want you to help me get is something I named Chaos Fruit. Chaos Fruit, Jia Yan chewed on the other person's words. Yes, Chaos Fruit. Although this Chaos Star territory is defined by the major forces as a place where efforts and rewards are not equal, if I release this thing, it will definitely increase the value of this place by more than one level, because this Chaos Fruit, according to my opinion, it is a treasure that can increase the possibility of being promoted to star level, Suao said with some enthusiasm. Is there really such a thing as a treasure that increases the chance of being promoted to the starry sky level? Jia Yan asked with some weird doubts. He has never thought that there is anything similar in the stars, and it is not a fantasy novel. Even though he himself relied on various substances to advance all the way, but relying on external objects to advance to the star level, seems a bit illusory to him. You must know that the star level is not that simple things. Even Jia Yan now feels that it is basically impossible for him to rely on external things to advance. That's right, Mr. Jia Yan, I'm just telling you that I, Saoka, have been at the level of starry sky level venerable for more than 200 years. I don't know everything about advancing to star level, but I also understand a lot, even knows more about promotion than the average star-level existence itself. According to my analysis, the secret of promotion to the star level is related to the true energy in us. And the chaos fruit I am talking about is something that can greatly enhance the true power. Although it cannot make a top starry sky level strong, I don't know about promotion yet, but it will definitely help. For someone like me who is only just one step away from success, it may help even more. I see. Is the chaos fruit such a thing? It can really. Jia Yan chewed on the other party's words, and vaguely gained some insights into his own path. Then why do you want me to help you again? I remember when we first met, I was just an existence in the early stage of starry sky, right? This was Jia Yan's last question, and it was also the biggest doubt as to why the other party was plotting against him. Haha, before I say this, I have to praise your promotion ability that makes me extremely envious. I have lived for nearly 1,000 years, and I have never seen anyone like you who can achieve the same goal in 1 or 2 years. You have been directly promoted from the early days of the starry sky to the existence of the peak of the starry sky, and it also makes me feel that I cannot defeat you. Even if my current strength is less than half of what I was at my peak, I still have to admire you. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 624. Seeing that the other party didn't get to the point, Jia Yan felt a little impatient, but because he didn't want to startle the enemy, he held himself back from getting angry. Suao continued. Of course, when I first met you, I never imagined that your strength would improve so quickly. Believe it or not, I was really out of my mind at the time. I just relied on my own instinct to find it. As it is now, it is possible to fly in this place where the power of brain waves cannot be used. And I didn't really hope that it would succeed. It's just that things are unpredictable. I didn't expect that before I died of old age, it would actually happen. I'm back here, and it's really you who brought me here, haha, maybe this is a sign that God wants me to achieve star level. Stop talking nonsense. Tell me, what exactly do you want me to do? Even after he said so much and just explained some of Jia Yan's doubts, but still didn't say what he wanted Jia Yan to do, Jia Yan still couldn't help it and interrupted his words easily. This Suao was hidden so deeply that even Jia Yan couldn't see his true face. Although some of them were due to the fact that the other party was really not clear-headed before, for Jia Yan, these were all excuses. If Suao was really true in the past, if they attack him, then he must be dead. Jia Yan made a decision, that is, he must not be so careless in the future. Master Jia Yan, you are not someone who is easily anxious. Haha, I won't hide it from you. I want you to come with me to collect the chaos fruit. I really don't have much confidence in my own strength. Of course. In what I said before, it is true that I have no ill intentions towards you. The chaos fruit I am talking about is a treasure that I named myself. When I saw it decades ago, there were still 2 of them. One for each person. I guess you won't be tempted by something like this that can increase your chances of being promoted to star level, right? Oh, Jia Yan's heart moved, and the words the other party said made him a little more active. He didn't dare to confirm whether what the other party said was true, but he was somewhat sure of his own strength, not to mention that he also needed materials that could enhance his star level. Okay, I'll go with you and have a look, but I won't follow your words in the future. If I find danger, I won't take the risk with you. By then, I won't care if you tell me how to leave or not. Leave. He suppressed the urge to arrest the other party for questioning and said directly. Haha, okay, believe me, you won't regret your decision, Suao said excitedly at Jia Yan's words. He had been waiting for so many years and had already given up on his current plan. He just wanted to die of old age slowly in a deserted galaxy where no one knew him. However, he didn't want to accidentally crash back into the world when he was so old that he lost his mind. Here, at this moment, he is trying his best to survive or die. It would be best if he can get help from Jiayan. Two huge life forms flew up together. Looking at Suao in front of him, Jiayan was constantly trying to figure out the other person's true thoughts. Suao's concealment from him was too much. At this moment, Jiayan couldn't believe that the other party really had no intentions towards him. As a last resort, I have to fight this old guy. Judging from his appearance, he has some strength, and his body is smaller than mine. He must be taking a speed-oriented path. I hope he can not do anything by then. After all, he has been there before they can be considered colleagues. Jia Yanfu thought with a faint look in his eyes. The speed of the two slowly increased, and Jia Yan felt that everything around him seemed to be strangely distorted. He looked forward with some surprise, and was shocked to find that it was Suao who caused the space distortion. "Sir, I must have been promoted to the high level of the starry sky not long ago, and my understanding of space is not deep, right? I have been promoted to the venerable level for hundreds of years. In addition to thinking about how to advance to the star level, I also have some understanding of space. This is the real reason why I was able to escape from this place with a narrow escape just a few decades ago." Suao seemed to feel what Jia Yan was thinking and explained to him directly. "In this mysterious mist, there are some weird electronic force fields that destroy the perception of living things. This is inevitable, and my spatial ability can break through these mists to the greatest extent. As you can see, this is the real reason why I survived here before." It seemed that the other party had clearly told him that it would be extremely difficult for Jia Yan to leave without him. Jia Yan secretly remembered the importance of understanding space. Just when the two monsters were flying deeper and deeper, the surrounding grey mist almost reached its peak. A monster that looked like a big mountain, like a three-headed dog flying from hell, rushed up from the sky and the earth, and pounced on Suao, who was leading the way in front. "Be careful, this monster is not easy to mess with." Suao did not forget to remind Jia Yan behind him, and then his body suddenly broke open the space in front of him with lightning, and he left almost teleportingly. So fast. Jia Yan had obviously known before that the opponent's strength might be speed, but now he was surprised to see Suao's true speed. Of course, he would not forget his situation. Suao fled, and Jia Yan was exposed behind him. The huge monster bumped into him, opened his bloody mouth, and bit Jia Yan. This monster is indeed very similar to the three-headed dog described by some religions on Earth. He has 3 dragon-like heads, and his body is 100 meters away. What is even more terrifying is that in his 3 large mouths, they are all spraying very thick mist towards the outside world. The fog was absolutely terrifying. Even from such a distance, Jia Yan was somewhat affected by the fog and felt dizzy. Ouch! One of the heads of the three-headed monster bit Jia Yan hard. Jia Yan was shocked in his heart and forced his wings to move. His speed expanded and his brainwave power was almost unusable. Now, his body actually became a little sluggish. Fortunately, the opponent's body was huge, and although the speed of the attack was fast, it could not directly exceed Jia Yan's dodge speed. At this moment, Jia Yan had to dodge and barely managed to escape in the lightning flash. "Be careful with his mist. This is a strange mist that can affect the brain waves of living things." Suao's words appeared next to Jia Yan. At the same time, Suao's extremely fast body suddenly flashed out beside the three-headed monster, and then his claws struck one of the three-headed monster's heads. Jia Yan looked at the scene with a somewhat solemn gaze. Although the mist of the three-headed monster was powerful, it seemed to be a bit weak for him. He was just dizzy for a moment. It has recovered a long time ago. Suao's blow didn't seem to be powerful, it just hit one of the foreheads of the three-headed fog monster, and it suddenly felt like a mountain roaring and a tsunami. The whole monster suddenly twisted its body and let out a loud scream. One of its heads was split in two from the middle, and the wound was extremely smooth, as if it had been cut with a sharp knife. Such After the other party screamed, he obviously knew that the two guys in front of him were not something he could deal with. Suddenly, the four eyes on the remaining two heads shot out resentful glances, and they stopped attacking and dodged towards the rear fog, obviously wanting to going to retreat. And at this moment, Jia Yan's voice appeared. "Where are you going? Now that you're here, let's die here." There was some indifference in his voice. His sharp front feet appeared, and what was even more terrifying was that the two front feet were aimed at a head respectively, stabbing hard at the vital parts of the monster. The two heads didn't seem to be thinking at all. When they saw Jia Yan's attack, they immediately fled in two directions in panic. However, the two heads were pulled towards each other and there was no way to escape. Jia Yan's two front feet stabbed two heads respectively, directly penetrating their brains and piercing into the depths of their minds. However, when Jia Yan stabbed them to death, a violent mist erupted from the two heads and directly ejected into the surrounding air, making the entire space smell strange. But Jia Yan was already prepared. At the same time as the mist appeared, a magical blue appeared in his body, and then the mist was actually blocked from his body. Master Jia Yan is worthy of being the one who can kill Rongbo. The strength should not be underestimated. Suao was already 100 meters away at this moment, watching Jia Yan kill the three-headed monster with one blow. The strength seems a bit surprising. Obviously, Jia Yan did not have this kind of strength when he killed Rongbo dozens of days ago, but the other party actually improved again at this moment. This talent made Suao a little envious and mixed with fear. Jia Yan, on the other hand, was also wary of the opponent's speed and lack of strength. "Okay, old monster Suao, your strength also surprises me, but now is not the time for us to praise each other. Go to the place you mentioned quickly, take whatever chaos fruit, and leave here," he said calmly. Road. The two didn't say much after that. They were wary of each other and flew towards the target quickly without any friction. The energy in this mist is extremely terrifying. It is not just energy, but also affects the brain waves of living things. Jia Yan even had the illusion that this was caused by human hands. Otherwise, how could it be possible to interfere with the brainwave power of living things by chance, only to make people unable to fly? But this is all just speculation. For Jia Yan, leaving here safely at this moment is the first priority. The huge fog monster seems to be the indigenous residents here. Most of them are hostile to the two foreign monsters Jia Yan and Suao, while others are curious. Fortunately, the strength of most of these monsters is below the starry sky level. Except for their terrifying mist attacks, other methods have little impact on Jia Yan and Suao. Die. The following are not charged. A funny thing happened just now in Bayou. I went to the toilet and met a little strongy. I stepped on it with one foot, but it didn't step on it. I was in a hurry to urinate and I had to rush to right a giant mosquito. I didn't know where it went, so I reached out to unbutton my pants. Ahem, I didn't expect that guy to jump out from my other foot, get into the slippers and run to my toes. Buletinyu was so surprised, and with a flick of his foot, Xiaoqiang flew away. But the glasses he was wearing also fell off. Jinji stretched out his hands to catch the glasses in an independent posture. Unexpectedly, I was caught. But in the independent state of the golden rooster, the person cannot stand still and leans forward. It was really just 0.01 centimeters away, and Buletinyu was about to fall into the toilet. Fortunately, Buletinyu was agile and independent and still holding his glasses with both hands. He actually used his tenacious willpower to stop himself. The way he fell down, well, his forehead actually hit the water tank. It hurt so much, and so thrilling. The biggest problem was that Xiao Baiyu was floating in the air for a long time and almost shrank back in fear. Good risk, good risk. Please subscribe to the original version and stop the panic, thank you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 625. Die. A thrust from the front foot pierced a huge head directly. The three-headed monsters let out loud roars that shook the sky, causing the surrounding fog monsters to flee into the distance in great terror. Although the three-headed monster lost one head, two other heads opened their mouths to bite the attacker. But while it was attacking the attacker, another faint figure appeared from behind. The speed of this figure could be described as lightning. After it appeared in a rush, it struck the monster's head with a fierce blow. The beheaded head suddenly screamed and split into two pieces. The incision was extremely smooth, and even the blood spurted out after falling to the ground. The scene was extremely weird. The remaining head became extremely frightened. The strength of the two monsters in front of him was obviously a level higher than his. This monster with a low IQ was a little confused. Let alone two monsters as powerful as him. It was difficult for him to encounter a monster, even a monster that was not much different from him. At this moment, there were actually two attacking him together, which was beyond his imagination. Joining forces, isn't this something only weak individuals can do? Each of these two guys is stronger than him, but they can still work together? Also, what exactly do these two guys look like? It seems to be different from the creatures here. This monster has too many doubts, but the other party obviously won't give him too much time to doubt. When only the last head of the monster was left, and in a somewhat confused state, the forefoot that pierced ahead had an extremely fierce momentum, and actually struck in one breath. Phew! The last remaining head exploded into blood flowers. This scene made countless three-headed monsters around them, whose eyesight was more powerful than the two monsters at the battle, feel frightened, and immediately retreated backwards one by one. Haha, Lord Jiayan, you are still so powerful. It has been 3 days and you still have such terrifying physical ability. I admire you. The lightning speed monster came to the side of the stabbing monster, and was obviously very surprised by its strength. To each other, I'm also surprised that you still have so much strength, the stabbing monster said with some fear of the former. These two monsters are Jiayan and Suowu. It has been 3 days since the two of them came to this terrifying fog area. During these 3 days, Suowu led Jiayan around. It can be said that they fought hard all the way. Kill, come here all the time. This road has really been a struggle. Jiayan couldn't remember how many three-headed monsters he had killed. The bodies of these monsters all looked similar, and the more he killed, the stronger the three-headed monsters in front seemed to become. Even Jiayan had some feeling tired. However, the one I killed before was a three-headed monster comparable to that of the early Starry Sky. After killing this monster, it seemed to pose a slight threat to the three-headed monster race on the side, so that the two of them had a rest to talk. Time. This old monster looks like he is almost dying of old age, but he actually has such endurance. Jiayan secretly glanced at Suowu on the side, a little shocked by the physical strength of this monster. You must know that even he, an evolved beast with amazing endurance, is struggling a little hard at this moment. This monster, which is already extremely old, is actually fighting at this moment. It's so lively and lively, it's just a bit contrary to common sense. Master Jiayan, you don't need to be surprised. My combat effectiveness has dropped a lot at this moment, and I use space power. This is a way of fighting to increase my strength. When it comes to endurance, I am definitely not as good as you. Suowu is an old guy who doesn't know how long he has lived. At this moment, he directly guessed Jiayan's thoughts and didn't hide anything. Explained directly. So that's it? They are really capable and have space power. The creatures here are really busy. Jiayan shook his head, feeling a little emotional about the Starry Sky level creatures here. He first learned the true power here, and now the ability of a space has emerged. However, it seems that there are not many strong people in the space to study it. Among the strong people he encountered before, he only studied Pai Lan among the top 10 strong people. Haha, Master Jiayan, even if you are not a strong person in our starry sky, I guess the path of a strong person in your side is similar. Needless to say, being really powerful is a necessary condition for advancing to the star level, but space power is not definitely, only the Sean Kong level who are too old can study it. Those who are as advanced as me are almost too old to be the Sean Kong Lord, and they are not worthy of being happy. Suao shook his head and said to Jia Yan, explain the rhetoric. In the past few days, Suao has not made any moves to plot against Jia Yan. Presumably the chaos fruit mentioned by the other party is also a real thing. Of course, this is just Jia Yan's preliminary judgment. The idea of this old monster is beyond his control. In all my life, I will not live until the age of 50, so there is no way to guess. Jia Yan did not answer Lao Suao's remarks. It was a question mark whether any of the creatures in Yingxian's arm were at the level of Sean Kong, let alone those at the level of Sean Kong. At this moment, I can only vaguely pass by. Seeing that Jia Yan didn't answer, Suao didn't ask. He just stood up and looked at the fog not far away, his whole body a little solemn. Jia Yan did not disturb the opponent. To be honest, Suao's behavior all the time seemed to be defenseless against Jia Yan. If Jia Yan wanted to attack the opponent, as long as he attacked at this moment, he would most likely succeed. However, it is impossible for Jia Yan to attack, not to mention the possibility of obtaining the chaos fruit. If Jia Yan wants to escape from this area as soon as possible, he must also use Wu's spatial resolution ability. What's more, Jia Yan didn't know if Suao had other means to defend him. After much consideration, he temporarily gave up the attack on Suao. Master Jia Yan, we are almost reaching the place I mentioned. But the next area will be the most dangerous area, and we have to use all our abilities. The strength of the three-headed monsters there has each reached the upper stage of the starry sky. The most powerful one is even the starry sky lord level, even I may not be sure that I can rush through, you have to be careful. After watching for a moment, Suao seemed to have determined the path, and then said to Jia Yan. Now that we're all here, let's give it a try. But as I said, if I find that I can't survive the danger, I will run away. Just don't blame me then. Jia Yan looked at the area. The foggy area, said directly. He was very envious of Suao's ability to see the road in the distance clearly, but it was precisely because of this ability that the other party could threaten him. It was impossible for Jia Yan to comprehend anything for a moment. After the two rested for a while, they continued on their way. The strength of both sides is still in a relatively complete state at this moment, which is why Suao is a little surprised. You must know that when he just met Jia Yan, his requirement for Jia Yan was that as long as he could fly, he did his best to protect Jia Yan from chaos. In the land of fruit, he later borrowed Jia Yan's ability to fly to do something, and then Jia Yan was useless. But now Jia Yan's strength is actually right under his nose. In less than a few years, he has grown to the point where he is now, and he can vaguely compete with him. Now he is more worried about whether he can get the so-called chaos fruit. Got some confidence. The two monsters were flying. Jia Yan's body reached about 50 meters, and each foot was twice as long as his body, with an average length of 100 meters, making it feel overwhelming and terrifying. Suao, on the other hand, looks a little weak, but those who know his speed and combat power don't dare to treat him as an ordinary monster who is about to die of old age. Not to mention Suao's master-level strength, just the weird space power, which seemed to be much better than Pai Lan he had seen before. The opponent's ability to cut with his claws, even if Jia Yan deployed the Azure defense, he couldn't. I must dare to take it hard. The surrounding air became somewhat chaotic, and there was an extremely terrifying radiation force floating in the air. I know, this mist is actually the atomized version of the Chaos Stone. After the mist became more solid, Jia Yan finally discovered the secret here. He was also extremely surprised at this moment. You know, he has been thinking about it before. The entire Chaos Star field seems to be inseparable from the so-called Chaos Stone. Find the Book Garden. No matter it is in the barren galaxy, the so-called Chaos Collection Point, and also came to the Chaos Star territory to see those strange stars, and even this mysterious giant star, there are shadows of Chaos Stones everywhere. The entire Chaos Star territory is worthy of being called the Chaos Star territory, and almost everything is similar to the Chaos Stone. There are endless relationships. And this mist, whose true identity had never been known before, became thicker now, and it was discovered that it was also an atomized version of the Chaos Stone. What affects biological brain waves is basically its radiation energy. That's it. Jia Yan looked at everything around him with a wry smile. Everything was made of things like Chaos Stone, which gave him a terrifying presence. Presumably the so-called Chaos Fruit is also inseparable from the Chaos Stone, right? Ouch. Just when Jia Yan was thinking about a very far away place, an unprecedented terrifying roar suddenly came from the mist in front of them. Hey, a high-level three-headed monster in the starry sky is such a powerful person to greet you when you first come up. Lord Jia Yan, let's work hard together. The Chaos Fruit area is 100 kilometers ahead. The next road depends on it's up to you. Suao let out a loud shout, and then his figure seemed to disappear in the mist. He even used his spatial ability that he had never used before and moved aside. And the roaring monster also revealed its body at this moment. At this moment, three huge heads that seemed to hold up the heaven and earth appeared directly in front of Jia Yan. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 626. This three-headed monster actually has a body that is 200 meters high, and each of its three ferocious heads can exceed half the size of Jia Yan's body. He emerged with an impact, looking at Jia Yan with a gaze that seemed to swallow Jia Yan whole. The terrifying energy that erupted from his body almost shook the entire world. Is this just the high level of Seeing Kong? Let me go, it has almost the same energy as the top level of Seeing Kong. Jia Yan stared at his compound eyes and looked at the monster with some solemnity. Look at Lao Suao again. At this moment, he actually left him behind and shot forward. His body was faintly hidden in the subspace, almost becoming a geopig, and pig and island rock is also difficult to see. Clear shadow. This guy is really not afraid of me. Turning around and leaving, Jia Yan shook his head helplessly and looked at him, then his heart became cold. Since this place has treasures that have advanced to the star level, he naturally cannot let the treasure mountain go. Moreover, he doesn't know how long it will take him to return and find a way to get out. Ouch! The three-headed monsters pounced with terrifying momentum. The opponent's huge body was probably the largest creature Jia Yan had encountered in a long time. Seeing the three heads on the 200-meter-long body pointed directly at him and biting down, Jia Yan could not help but feel a little uncomfortable being suppressed by his momentum. However, the high-level starry sky is only the high-level starry sky. Even if the opponent's aura may be more terrifying than Rongbow's, in comparison, the strength is far behind. As a high-level being in the starry sky, although Jia Yan's momentum cannot be compared with that of the other party, it is not necessarily weaker than him. Call out. A lightning-like shadow arrived first and aimed at one of the three-headed monster's heads, hitting the opponent's head directly in the center. Ouch! The monster let out a terrifying roar, and his head was stabbed directly by one of its front legs, but that was all. The hardness of the opponent's head seemed to be beyond Jia Yan's expectation. At this moment, his front legs were stabbed when he entered. He only felt that what he penetrated was like a piece of gold steel, and it got stuck in the opponent's bones. The other two heads of the three-headed monster raised their heads and opened their mouths to bite at Jia Yan's head, seemingly ignoring their injured head. Jia Yan's expression did not change, but at this moment his front foot was stuck, and the other front foot was lifted up unhurriedly, aiming at the eye of the opponent's head and inserting it. A moment later, the head was also severely injured. It's just that they can't kill each other directly. The remaining head came to Jia Yan with a strong wind, aimed at his head and bit it off, with the overwhelming momentum, almost like biting off the big mosquito's forehead. But before that, the mouth part in front of Jia Yan's head suddenly lifted up. Aim at the opponent's head and spray out the sharp needle. In terms of hardness, Jia Yan's needle is no softer than the forefoot. After all, it is a feeding organ. Although it has not had much use since then, it has always retained its strong hard nature. At this moment, it spurted out in a surprising move. The other party didn't notice it at all. The mouth needle shot into the opponent's forehead, causing injuries to all three monster heads, and the whole body suddenly shook wildly. Jia Yan took this opportunity to directly pull out several of his attacking organs. At the same time, he looked at the opponent's mouth where the mist was sprayed. After a gleam flashed in his compound eyes, he gave up the idea of attacking. Even if you kill the opponent, it will only be a waste of strength. There is no benefit at all. Jia Yan moved his body, bypassed the three monsters, and plunged into the mist behind them. The roars of the three monsters behind him suddenly became distant. Jia Yan still felt a little relaxed, but he was suddenly shocked again in his heart. It turned out that another similar three-headed monster was attacking in front of him. Are there many such monsters? Jia Yan's face froze, and he suddenly felt that Nasuawa was a little inhumane. He was left to face these monsters alone, but he took advantage of his speed to run ahead. It was also a little uncomfortable for Jia Yan. However, the uncomfortable feeling towards the other party is not new to him now. If he had the ability to kill the other party, Jia Yan would have done it a few days ago. Now it's better to find a way to break out on your own. Jia Yan used his speed quickly and did not dare to fight the monster in front of him. Instead, he cleverly used the terrain and bypassed a small hill. The monster jumped on the top of the hill. Maybe ordinary people on Earth would consider a 1,000-meter mountain to be very tall. But for such a 200-meter tall monster, it collapsed upon impact. Rumble, rumble. There was a loud bang and gravel flying throughout the fog. And in the thick dust, a slightly smaller figure shot out of the dusty area. Only inside that area, the roars from the huge monsters were transmitted. But in front of this figure, another terrifying figure was waiting for him. It's really troublesome, but this kind of monster seems to have a strong territorial tendency. I can dodge one or two attacks from the opponent and then rush out of their territory. It is almost impossible to be attacked by two together. The slightly smaller figure was naturally Jia Yan. He didn't have much fear of the monster appearing in front of him, but rushed in front of it. The three monsters were almost replicas of the previous two monsters, and their strength was also similar. Jia Yan was extremely angry at his arrival, and the three heads opened their mouths and bit them at the same time. Having seen it more, there is no longer such a huge sense of mystery for this kind of monster. For a powerful being with extremely high intelligence like Jia Yan, it is even easier to discover the opponent's weaknesses. For example, although their momentum is strong, their defense is weak. Surprisingly, the attack methods are a bit weak, and there is no change in the moves. After grasping these, it will not be so difficult for Jia Yan to get rid of the opponent's entanglement. The moment before the monster pounced, his body twisted, and the moment before the handover, he rushed through the opponent's body. The monster let out a thunderous mountain roar and turned its head angrily to bite the big mosquito. Unexpectedly, three heads turned around and saw nothing. But underneath his body, Jia Yan's figure suddenly turned around, then turned around again and passed through the lower part of the opponent's huge body. When the three-headed monster came back to its senses, Jia Yan's body had already passed through the monster's abdomen and headed to the territory of another three-headed monster further away. These monsters are not scary individually. The scary thing is that if they unite together, they are really an unbelievable force. Fortunately, they seem to have no natural enemies here, so there is basically no possibility of joining forces. And there is no thought of leaving here, otherwise, the entire Chaos Star territory will not only be dangerous, but a complete death place for the Starry Sky level. While Jia Yan was running, he was frightened by the terrifying three-headed monster he saw. If these three monsters were to unite, even he, Jia Yan, would definitely run away. Just when Jia Yan was glad that these monsters did not unite together, his heart suddenly trembled. It turned out that right in front of him, 6 pairs of eyes were looking at him faintly. The sense of pressure from these 6 pairs of eyes was almost as terrifying as the first time Jia Yan encountered it after living for so long. Scarier than Na Rongbo, scarier than Suao who released his power, and those terrifying three-headed monsters behind him were far worse than them. Hiss. The owner of the 6 pairs of eyes stared at Jia Yan, and the head under the eyes sprayed out traces of blue-gray mist, and when these mist touched the air, they directly made a sound that sounded like a chemical reaction. You must know that the air here is a mixture of various poisonous mist, and the mist sprayed by this monster can actually cause such a terrifying sound, which shows how terrible the toxins in it are. Jia Yan's movements froze for a moment. The area here has reached the 2 kilometers that Suao mentioned, that is to say, it is not far from the so-called chaos fruit, and the danger here is also reflected through the monster in front of him. It even exceeded Jia Yan's expectations. This monster is also a three-headed monster, but the difference is that he is actually an existence that has reached the peak of the Starry Sky level. Compared with the high-level Starry Sky level being behind, the terror of this monster cannot be described in words. Not only is the terror of his momentum, but even the size of his body is no longer 200 meters ahead of the high-level Starry Sky level monster behind him. It looked like a terrifying giant beast that reached 250 meters. You must know that Jia Yan's one-man battleship is only more than 300 meters long, which means that the monster he is facing at this moment is actually a guy that is almost as big as his battleship. This monster has a majestic appearance, and endless power surges on the surface of its body. It seems that he is only a little short of breaking through the peak of the Starry Sky level and reaching the strength of the Venerable level. And coupled with the geographical location and the advantage of a huge body, its combat effectiveness may be comparable to that of Lao Suao. Definitely a big enemy of Jia Yan. Ho ho, the opponent's 6 eyes seemed to have an IQ that far exceeded those of the high-level monsters in the Starry Sky behind. The eyes looking at Jia Yan at this moment were filled with solemnity. It was obvious that he also knew that Jia Yan was a capable person. He fought with all his might. One big and one small, 50 meters versus 250 meters, facing each other. Don't fight him. 3 kilometers ahead of you, there is a place with a hidden creature's aura. Try your best not to let him notice it. Just when Jia Yan thought a battle was inevitable, the voice of old Suao reached his tentacled ears. Huh? This old guy has actually arrived. Jia Yan looked behind the peak Starry Sky level monster, but didn't see anything. However, he didn't suspect anything, so he made a mistake with 6 legs and bypassed the monster. From the front, I want to fly towards the opponent's rear. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 627. It is impossible for those 3 monsters to let go of monsters that dare to invade their territory, not to mention that this monster is a strange species that he has never seen before. For the existence of this closed place, it is a good toy that attracts their attention. So when Jia Yan took a slight detour and was about to shuttle into the 3-kilometer area from the 500-meter area to the opponent's side, the opponent's body actually moved, and his 4 strong feet stepped hard on the ground. It caused the entire area to shake, and directly hit Jia Yan, who was about to escape. Quite fast, Jia Yan couldn't help but be startled when he saw the other party's speed, but his reaction was not slow, and he changed direction again in an instant. The three-headed monster bit off one of its heads, but Jia Yan changed its direction before that, and all it bit was a mouthful of broken rock. And Jia Yan's avoidance was not so smooth. He had deceived the opponent's head, but there were still two heads staring at him. Jia Yan had just changed to a place, but he felt a strong wind blowing from above his head. That was another head coming towards him. To the little guy Jia Yan, the other person probably thought he looked like a little reptile. There was some random biting at the moment. And if Jia Yan escapes this bite, there will be another head waiting for him. But Jia Yan's action was unexpected. Jia Yan saw that he could not escape the opponent's bite for a moment, and the ferocity in his heart was suddenly aroused. "I'm so powerful, you think I'm a sick cat?" Jia Yan's eyes flashed, and then he aimed his forefoot at the head that was coming towards him, and counterattacked away. The strength of Jia Yan's right front foot is estimated to be the strongest of all the body parts now. At this moment, the muscles suddenly tightened, preparing to face the imminent impact. As for the opponent's strength, Jia Yan absolutely believes that the opponent is powerful, but he is not easy to mess with, not to mention that the penetration of his front feet is extremely terrifying. The stronger the opponent's strength, the more powerful the attack from his front feet will be. Has powerful destructive power. The head was bitten off hard, and Jia Yan could faintly see the blood-red flesh in the other person's mouth. Moreover, there is a terrible toxin spreading, which makes the big mosquitoes unbearable and drowsy. Fortunately, his body is not that of an ordinary monster. Even if it had a slight impact on the opponent's attack at this moment, it did not cause him to lose his armor and lose his ability to fight. Instead, after his spirit was shaken, his eyes shone brightly. Even worse. The three-headed monster obviously did not expect that Jia Yan would dare to fight back against them. At this moment, looking at Jia Yan's tiny forefoot, which was only the size of one of his teeth, a flash of disdain flashed in their 6 pairs of eyes. He also had some knowledge of Big Mosquito's strength, but since he had obviously never seen outside life, he didn't think that the other party would ever be close to his own strength. After all, here, strength is still judged by body shape. The next moment, the other party felt regretful. Jia Yan's front foot pierced his huge mouth fiercely. Although Jia Yan felt a trace of corrosive power invading his right foot for a moment, the azure color rising from the front foot directly blocked that energy. In the outside world, the other party felt that the sharp feet stabbed into his mouth faster than he expected, and shot directly into the organ in the huge mouth without any obstruction, although it only advanced to a short distance from the brain. It stopped at a long distance, narrowly missing the head's brain, but it still made him feel pain that he hadn't felt for a long time. It's not just pain, it's huge pain. Ouch. This monster almost went crazy. Jia Yan's strength exceeded his expectations. You must know that he is almost invincible in this mist, and the opponent, who doesn't look big, can actually cause such terrible damage to him. He couldn't believe it, and he was filled with overwhelming anger. This tiny monster actually dared to attack him, the king. And it hurt him. The head that did not launch the attack had a flash of light in its eyes, and then a green smoke appeared in his mouth. This smoke seemed to be a poisonous flame. As soon as it appeared on the spot, it exploded into a torrent of thick smoke sprayed towards Jia Yan's location. Roar! Thick smoke spurted out, and Suao's screams could be faintly heard from the hidden ground not far away. At the same time, there was also a trace of regret in his exclamation. You must know that the last time he came here, several teammates were not only no weaker than Jia Yan, but there were even more powerful lords than Jia Yan. However, including him, for this monster's poisonous smoke attack has no effect at all. At this moment, Jia Yan was attacked by the opponent's poisonous smoke, and Suao didn't think he was spared enough, so he felt that his actions were not so smooth. Without Jia Yan, the next actions would be limited in every way. Just when Suao was lamenting, he quickly looked surprised. It turned out that although Jia Yan could not dodge under the attack of the poisonous mist, his body shook, he shook his head directly, and continued to move like lightning without any abnormalities, flying towards Suao. Roar! The monster behind was angrily trying to catch up, but because of its huge body, it couldn't turn around quickly. And slowed down a bit. And it can be seen that the previous poisonous smoke attack seems to be a huge burden on this monster. At this moment, the monster's momentum is a little sluggish, and it feels like the poisonous smoke spraying out of his body is less. Jia Yan walked around a huge mountain 2,000 meters high, and the opponent's body chased him here. When he walked around the mountain shockingly, trying to see where Jia Yan was going, he suddenly found that Jia Yan was no longer in front of him. Traces of rock. Ouch! The monster let out a ferocious roar, and its three heads frantically scanned the surroundings, trying to find the bastard who dared to tease his absolute king. However, the tiny existence seemed to have disappeared after turning around the mountain. It seemed as if it had never appeared before, and there was no shadow at all. The huge three-headed monster was walking around strangely near the mountain. After crawling for a while, it was probably confirmed that the other party had really left. Although it was strange that the other party escaped so fast, it still shook its head helplessly and left the place. Of course, although the opponent's head is smarter than the average monster, it is impossible to imagine that the mountain where he was before is the hiding place of the opponent's monster. Just inside the mountain, the two beings were slightly relieved when they saw the 250-meter-sized monster leaving with an earth-shattering noise. Is there such a thing here? Jia Yan looked around strangely. He was led here by Suao before, and then he got into a big hole opened in the mountain. After that, the big hole closed, and the three-headed monster that was chasing him lost his figure. Now that the other party left, Jia Yan had some time to look at the area he entered, but he was a little shocked to find that this was actually the internal area of a huge battleship. In front of him was the Suao, which was more than 20 meters in size. The area where the two were standing at the moment was the bridge area of the battleship. The entire battleship seemed to have experienced some kind of damage, not only was less than half of the lights on. And there are traces all over the system. This is probably a broken battleship that can no longer fly. However, it can be seen that this battleship was absolutely domineering before it was damaged. Just looking at its current appearance, it is known that the entire battleship surpasses the Kudatan Camp-class spacecraft owned by Jia Yan and has reached a terrifying level. It is 2 kilometers long, and only less than half of its body is exposed at the moment. Haha, this battleship used to belong to our mercenary team. It once accompanied us in the Sea of Stars for a long time. Who would have thought that it would actually sink here, and most of them will sleep here forever? Suao's eyes full of vicissitudes of life looked at the surrounding mirrors. He must have countless memories of this spaceship. Mercenary team, Jia Yan chewed on this new term, but through the literal meaning, he could understand what it was. Yes, I won't lie to you anymore. I was once a member of a mercenary team. Our last mission was to come to the Chaos Star territory to obtain some rare minerals. I didn't want us to discover this huge planet or even discover it. We found the Chaos Fruit here, but we didn't have a clear grasp of the dangers here. The whole period was ruined here, and I was the only one who barely escaped. Suao looked at the dilapidated battleships around him, looking for Book seemingly lost in memories. But Jia Yan was not moved by what he said. The entire team perished here, and only Suao escaped. It is uncertain what happened. Maybe it was Suao who carried out the plan on the entire team. What about killing people and silencing them? He had said that only he could escape from this foggy area through his space talent. If he refuses to save him, he may cause the death of the entire team. Okay, don't mention the past, let's talk about the next thing. Suao also knew that Jia Yan couldn't believe him or anything, so he sighed for a moment and then collected his emotions. The area we are in is very close to the Chaos Fruit. It is possible to encounter the chaos fruit anywhere in this area. Suao took out an electronic map this time. Pointing his paw, he pointed around the entire map. This area is a map of a vast area. According to the label above, it is actually about 200 kilometers by 200 kilometers in size. Normally, such an area would only take a few seconds to fly over, but in an area full of those terrifying three-headed monsters, 200 kilometers is a bit too big. Why is the range so large? Didn't you say you know the place? Could it be that the chaos fruit can run away on its own? Jia Yan said, suddenly feeling uncomfortable. Did I say that the chaos fruit can't run away on its own? Yes, the chaos fruit can really run away on its own. In fact, it is just a living thing. Suao revealed the fact that shocked Jia Yan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 628. Will the chaos fruit run away? Jia Yan said in surprise. That's right, I didn't say it wasn't a living thing, Suao said with a slight smile. After Jia Yan was stunned for a moment, he finally realized that he was just confused by Soudi's name. The so-called chaos fruit might really be a living creature. Okay, let's take a short rest here, and then set off to find the chaos fruit. This is what he looks like. Following Suao's words, the miniature brain he was wearing shot out an image. The image shows the appearance of a creature with 4 eyes and a slender mouth, like a duck. However, the figure and strength written on it are obviously not what ducks on Earth can achieve. With around heaven-level strength, and a unique ability to burrow into the ground, there are almost no natural enemies in the entire area. What can those three-headed monsters of the starry sky level masters not do with them? Jia Yan read this so-called chaos with some surprise. Fruit data. That's right, how about even the venerable level monsters here take these 2 heaven-level chaos fruits? Of course, I'm not very familiar with the area here. Maybe there are more than just these 2 chaos fruits, or maybe several 10 years have passed, and these 2 may have become extinct. Anyway, we have to go out and have a look, Suao said calmly. Jia Yan looked at each other, and then said, if there is really only one left, how will we divide it between the 2 of us? Although he is not in a hurry to be promoted to the star level, he cannot let go of this opportunity. Haha, of course whoever catches it will get it, Suao said, and we must cooperate, otherwise why would I bother you to come over? This kind of creature does not have much resistance against flying monsters. They have no eyes and can only avoid danger by feeling the vibrations of the earth. I have tried it before. They can detect flying creatures even at close range. As we approach, the perceptible distance is greatly shortened. As long as we work together, we will definitely have a chance to capture them. It turns out that this is the real purpose of Suao looking for Jia Yan. Jia Yan finally understood. The other party wanted to find a flying creature with acceptable strength to help him. The reason was that creatures like Chaos Fruit, probably due to the ring mirror, did not have much ability to perceive flying life, so the 2 flying creatures, by conducting a roundup, your chances are greatly increased. The 2 discussed this issue for a while, and then under Suao's introduction, they took a tour inside the dilapidated battleship. It was after visiting this battleship that Jia Yan understood the gap between the strong and the strong. Beings such as Rongbo were powerful, but due to their limited vision, they could not have the power of Suao's former teammates. This kind of battleship is not only different in strength of the battleship, but also the former members of the battleship are all powerful beings. Marshmallownovel.myanhuatang.la has almost all the books you want to read. It is more stable and updates faster than other ordinary novel websites. It is full text and has no ads. As the most powerful captain in the team with the other venerable, Suao was in great danger when his teammates died. He barely escaped the death of the female student's male teacher who was fighting for the chaos fruit. but he immediately fell into the mental decline caused by aging, and his strength was weakened to the minimum at the same time. He even had to activate the battleship itself and collide with a three-headed monster of the venerable level here to escape from this place in embarrassment. A total of 8 powerful beings similar to Suao died in this area. It seems that things are far from being as simple as Suao said. I must be careful next. After Jia Yan knew the number of death warriors and their strength, he unconsciously became more concerned about his own safety. According to my previous observations, after 3 days, the atomized area will enter a weakening period for about a week. By then, the activity frequency of the 3 monsters in the entire core area will be reduced. This is also our opportunity. Because the danger is reduced, then we can using this warship as a base camp, the 2 of us divided into 2 teams to search. If we find the chaos fruit, we will use my special communicator to communicate. Suao's preparations can be said to be perfect, and even the equipment that can communicate over short distances in the fog is perfect. I don't know if this communicator can communicate with the giant Mosquito fleet above. During the break, Jia Yan was placed alone in a huge space. This was the first time in a long time that he had entered such a comfortable space. He played with the communicator in his forefoot and tentatively opened the communication channel of the fleet above. I didn't expect it was connected. Marshal, an unidentified communication request is trying to connect, and the identification signal actually belongs to Master Jia Yan. Just when Jia Yan tried to connect to the communication, 500 kilometers away in the sky above this large foggy area, an extremely excited voice sounded from a fleet that was almost in chaos. "Oh? Are you really an adult? Put me through." A tired female voice appeared behind the reporting voice. The owner of the voice felt a little hoarse. When the voice sounded, a communication light curtain appeared in front of her. Jia Yan's face was revealed in front of this woman. Although the big mosquito monster's face was not so beautiful, at this moment, suddenly smiled when he saw Jia Yan's face. It seems that you didn't have a very good time while I disappeared. Jia Yan, who was opposite the communicator, did not expect that he could actually communicate with the fleet using this communicator. But he was just stunned, and when he saw Kama's beautiful face appearing in front of him, it looked a little aggrieved and pitifully charming. He immediately said in a funny voice, "Boss, you are still laughing at me. If you hadn't disappeared strangely, I wouldn't have been in so much trouble. Although the entire fleet has not been directly separated, more than half of the captains are ready to make a move. You are making me so tired." "I don't know," Karma said angrily. Hearing that this woman seemed to have a lot of grievances against him, Jia Yan felt a little relieved. Although this woman was probably not very loyal to him, Jia Yan really had no choice but to believe her in the fleet. "Okay, my communication time is probably not that long. The signal in the area where I am now is unstable. You should first reveal the news that I am still alive. By the way, let's see who are the most powerful jumpers in the fleet. Wait. I'll go back and take revenge on the CEO." Jia Yan said softly. At this moment, the fog seemed to be evaporating, and large swaths of snowflakes appeared on the entire communication screen. Then the video communication is closed directly. "Ho ho, boss, Jia Yan is fine as expected. He asked me to write down the best jumper. He definitely knows that. Who else in the entire fleet dares to jump with me except MOK? It's okay now. Boss is fine at all." MOK said to divide and conquer. "Let's see what you do." Put down the communicator, and Jia Yan almost wiped away her fatigue in the short conversation with her. In fact, there was still a lot she didn't have time to tell Jia Yan. She had also wanted to send a warship into the fog area to see if she could investigate Jia Yan's life and death. But when a warship approached the fog, a group of three-headed monsters that reached the starry sky level seemed to emerge from the fog in an instant, directly destroying the unmanned warship that tried to enter. This is what Mok became increasingly aware of. The reason why Yan is already dead, otherwise how could he dare to do something in front of Kama? The boss should keep Mok still useful, but this time it is possible that he will no longer be able to fight against me. In order to have a greater say when I go to the Northern Star territory, I can ask the boss to help me. I can't let this guy's status be equal to mine. A calculating expression appeared on Kama's stunningly beautiful face. Let's not talk about the intrigues in the battleship group in the sky. After Jia Yan conducted some research on the fleet's communications, he suddenly no longer worried about the sky. For him, the giant Mosquito fleet is a must-have support, not only because of the friendship between Kama and the Kudetans, but also because he needs a force to help him in the next journey. Okay, now let's study some of the information that old guy Suao told me. Jia Yan knelt down. He was not too worried about his situation. He had already proved that his Azure defense could even resist the toxins of the top 3 monsters. As long as he was not besieged by a few monsters, he would be able to deal with it. I am still confident in my ability to survive. After a series of combat strength analysis and an escape risk assessment, Jia Yan became somewhat relieved about his current situation. Rest time always passes quickly. Before I knew it, 3 days passed quickly. Okay, Master Jia Yan, we can set off. After Jia Yan repaired the energy loss in his body, and some of the toxins in the 3-headed monsters were expelled from the body by his blue defense, Suao the sound sounded. Okay, Jia Yan stood up after hearing the voice. He was not in a hurry. The safety of this place was still guaranteed. Even if he could not go out for the time being, it would not be a depressing thing for the big Mosquito. But for Suao, 3 days was a long time too. It was only 3 days later. When Jia Yan saw him again, he only saw the aura of death on his body. Even more intense. This is the struggle of an old monster in the last moments of his life. Okay, let's go out. The latest chapter of Lightning Summoner. The fog outside has become the smallest. Old Suao obviously doesn't care whether Jia Yan communicates with the fleet. All he cares about is his own lifespan. Let's go. Although Jia Yan was dissatisfied with Lao Suaojinja's method of kidnapping him, and even if he had a way, he would definitely kill him, but he still felt a little uncomfortable when he saw Li Shiwu, who was getting weaker and weaker at this moment. Pity. The two exited the cabin side by side. In the foggy area, a 100-meter passage suddenly opened in the middle of a large mountain. 2 monsters walked out from between. Okay, let's split up into 2 sides. You go to the east, and I'll go to the west. If you find the shadow of the chaos fruit, use the communicator to contact us. You must be able to use it already, old Suao said playfully. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 629. Not long after, 2 flying creatures suddenly appeared in the area. There. Meaning. Thinking. Book. UN. Perhaps in the fog area, no creature that uses wings to fly has ever been born. Even those 3-headed monsters mostly rely on brute force to fly. The 2 flying monsters that appeared at this moment were actually flying, and their speed was not comparable to those of ordinary 3-headed monsters. Ouch! In the area where a flying monster flew by, a 3-headed monster with a terrifying aura suddenly jumped up. Although his aura seemed to be slightly weaker than the flying creature flying above, his body was huge, and there were, due to the foggy location, if we start fighting at this moment, it will really look like a wonderful battle. But the flying monster just accelerated its wings, which was a turning point. The direction suddenly changed, and the opponent's body jumped into the air. Sure enough, as long as I fly at extremely high speeds, it won't be easy for these monsters to catch me. The flying figure was Jia Yan. At this moment, he looked at the 3-headed monster below and saw that the opponent's attack failed to catch Jia Yan's trajectory. He was extremely angry and wanted to attack again, but because he could not fly, he could only a second attack can only be launched after falling to the ground. But before that, Jia Yan had already flown to other places. They actually have such a big loophole. Suao obviously knows this. He didn't tell me before. He wanted to see my breakthrough ability. Jia Yan felt that he seemed to have been calculated by Suao again. In fact, he had never tried to use the breakthrough of flying before, but in the fog, his sense of direction was not good, and he couldn't even tell whether he was flying high in the sky. Therefore, when he was flying in the past, he did not dare to accelerate to a very high level, otherwise he would not be able to react when encountering beings of equal strength. No matter how imaginative he was before, he never thought that monsters in the entire fog area would be unable to fly normally. Now that the advantages of flying creatures are used, it suddenly becomes the biggest advantage. Even if the three-headed monster at the top of the starry sky level that was chasing Jia Yan before saw Jia Yan, he wanted to pursue him angrily, but he still could only catch up with Jia Yan. I just ate a bunch of smoke and dust behind the rock. Lord Jia Yan, you have to be careful. If you see something bigger than the peak monster chasing you from afar, run away, because that is the real strongest person in this entire fog, a three-headed monster of the venerable level. If you are discovered by them, it may be a life or death crisis. My former teammates died in their hands. Suddenly Suao's words came from the communicator. Jia Yan was startled, then smiled bitterly. Only then did he realize that this old guy was hiding something. It turned out that there really was a three-headed monster of the venerable level here. At this moment, when Lao Suao said it, he was obviously chasing a duck. Jia Yan was already dispatched. Why don't he just do it if he can say it? And just when Jia Yan was a little depressed, a strange and huge body appeared in front of Jia Yan in his compound eyes with good dynamic vision. Although they were almost 10 kilometers apart, the terrifying figure of the other party was still reflected directly in Jia Yan's compound eyes. The opponent's body reaches a full 300 meters. Directly refreshed the data of the largest creature Jia Yan has ever seen. Moreover, this monster's body faintly exudes a kind of venerable aura similar to Suao's, and it is a kind of venerable aura without age. Not to mention anything else, coupled with the terrifying size of its body, it exudes the strength of his aura is almost twice as strong as that of Suao. Although the strength of strong people cannot be determined simply from their aura, the strength of their aura represents the strength of the opponent's energy. Although it is possible that they cannot defeat a strong person with similar strength, an advantage is an advantage. This is it's like a strong man. Although he may not be the strongest warrior, no strong man dares to underestimate him, because if he hits him casually, he will either die or be injured. What's more, the current Jia Yan is just a star-level peak powerhouse, one level behind his opponent. Roar. The three-headed monster at the level of a venerable seemed to show a trace of anger when he saw Jia Yan. Obviously, as an extremely powerful person here, he might have met the group of powerful people like Lao Suao decades ago. When I saw Jia Yan at this moment, I immediately understood that this was another invading outside life. He rushed over in a rage. Before his body came close, Jia Yan could already feel a terrifying aura locking himself in the other person's body, and at the same time, the space around him tightened faintly. Is this the ring mirror locking ability that can only appear among the powerful ones at the venerable level? Jia Yan felt around his body with some surprise. When he first read about this ability, he had a feeling that this was not a novel. How could there be such a shitty street thing? But after actually experiencing this kind of thing, he suddenly had a clear understanding of this so-called locking. Space locking ability. For these three-headed monsters, it is not an ability that will appear automatically after reaching this level, just like the level of the Lord in the outside world. The description of this ability in the information Jia Yan read is that this ability is a sublimation of one's own species. The strong people from the outside world generally have more contact with outer space, so most of them, such as Pai Lan and Suao, directly study the space itself. The three-headed monster at the venerable level in front of him has a spatial lock on the fog, because he was born and grew up in the fog. The surrounding fog completely suppressed Jia Yan's body. Cack. Cack. Layers of mist instantly condensed on the surface of Jia Yan's body like ice cubes. His body seemed to be stuck in the mud, and he could hardly move. The sparkle in Jia Yan's compound eyes did not show panic. Just as the three monsters got closer, a liquid melted on one side of his body and surged instantly. This is the condensation that can only appear when he mutates. Perhaps it was the effect of mutation. Jia Yan found that he could operate the condensation just after undergoing this mutation. At this moment, his body was locked by the opponent's space ability, urging the mist to be locked, and the condensation suddenly appeared. The mist activated by the opponent's ability seemed to have encountered a natural enemy when it encountered the condensation. It looked like it was melting directly, turning into liquid, dripping down together with the condensation on Jia Yan's body surface. The rocks on the ground made a sizzling sound when they touched the dripping liquid. You must know that these rocks are not simple rocks. They have existed in this mist for countless years. The mist should have no effect on them, but at this moment they actually showed signs of melting as soon as they were touched by this liquid. It was simply an extremely terrifying poison. Escape. Just when he felt his body lose power instantly, Jia Yan was shocked. He found that he wasted a huge amount of power by urging the condensation to fight against the opponent's mist and ice. He suddenly understood that his strength was different from the other party's mist. The other side is too different. Fortunately, the opponent's space locking ability is almost ineffective against Jia Yan. Jia Yan only consumes a huge amount of energy in his body to cancel out the ice cubes formed by the mist, and can still fly away quickly. The opponent's ability to control the environment is obviously limited by distance. When Jia Yan flew 100 kilometers away, the opponent's remote control ability weakened, and the mist crystals on his body that condensed like ice cubes completely disappeared. Too horrible. Jia Yan fled the area and suddenly felt like he was surviving a disaster. Is this the strength of a true venerable? It seems that my evaluation of Suao needs to be raised to a higher level. However, such a powerful group of strong men still perished in this area, which shows the danger of this place. Maybe it's beyond my imagination. Jia Yan was a little scared. If his condensation hadn't had the effect of dissolving the mist clots created by the opponent, he might have been attacked by the three-headed monster of the venerable level. He didn't think he could really win this. The only thing that still occupies the geographical advantage is the three-headed monster of the venerable level. The venerable level turns out to be so terrifying, and their environmental control ability is only average. The semi-star level, which is stronger than them, can control an area of more than 500 kilometers. And the real star level, it has almost changed the world. It is estimated that even a small planet will be controlled by the star level, that is the real control of the world. This kind of energy has something to do with Zhenneng. How come I haven't discovered until now that Zhenneng not only allows me to advance to the starry sky level, but also has the effect of controlling the environment? It seems that I still have too little background. When Jia Yan saw the three-headed monster of the starry sky level, he felt that his strength had a huge weakness, that is, even compared with these three-headed monsters with low IQs, his background was insufficient, because he was alive. There is too little time, and there are relatively few battles, so at this time, the future path is not yet clear. Jia Yan, have you encountered a three-headed monster at the level of a venerable? Suao's voice suddenly came from the communicator, which brought Jia Yan, who was still frightened, back to his senses. Yes, Suao, regarding the information at this moment, how much information do you have that you haven't given me? I don't want to fight to the death and end up risking a star level, Jia Yan responded with some unbearable anger. Haha, don't worry, how can a star level be possible? If there were stars, This chaotic star field would not be like this long ago. We would have died long ago if we didn't get close to this planet. Don't worry, don't say star level, half star. There are no level 3 monsters, and according to my several observations, there are almost 5 venerable level 3 headed monsters here. As long as we can be careful with these 5 monsters, the other 3 headed monsters are not a big problem. After all, we are for flying creatures, the advantages of sky and speed are extremely huge. I hope it's as you said. Jia Yan closed the communication with a somewhat cold voice. He would always only believe half of Suao's explanation. What's more, even if he didn't say it, both parties knew that in the future, whether there was any gain or not, the possibility of a big war between the two of them was still very high. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 630. The fog area is one of the most dangerous places in the entire mysterious superstar. The other places are either equally dangerous or do not have anything very beneficial. Meaning. Thinking. Shu. UN, these information were all conclusions reached by Suao decades ago. In contrast, the fog area, at least on this planet, has been proven by Suao to have things that can be advanced. Compared with those places where I don't know if there are good things, at least I can give it a try. A huge mosquito flew in the mist-shrouded space. There are actually 5 venerable level 3-headed monsters in the whole space. It's just a joke. If I didn't have the method of condensation in the previous encounter, Suao would come to help me? I don't believe it. Jia Yan's eyes were a little bright. Yi looked at the space around him, his expression even more vigilant. Regardless of whether Suao has the heart to help him or not, for him, there are too many dangers in the entire space. For him, what he has to do at this moment is to survive the danger on his own. It is simply impossible to rely on Suao. If you can't even survive the danger yourself, how can you compete with Suao for the Chaos Fruit? Fortunately, although there are 5 venerable level 3-headed monsters in the central area of the fog, it is not easy to see them in the entire area. Jia Yan roughly recalled the map of this fog area. The entire area is divided into 2 parts. The central core is the central area. The scope of this area is about 8,000 kilometers in radius. For many venerable levels, although the monster is not that big, this is a huge area like the Earth after all. In the foggy area where things cannot be seen from a distance, it is enough for them to live without invading each other. The more peripheral area is the outer area, which is where Jia Yan and the others entered. This outer area surrounds the entire core area of the fog, with a thickness of about 5,000 kilometers, and some weak 3-headed monsters grow there. In other words, none of the 3-headed monsters in the core area is weak. Roar. Just as Jia Yan was recalling the situation here, a terrifying cry reached Jia Yan's ears. His figure paused, and then he quickly turned around in a circle toward the rear. His speed suddenly changed, and he suddenly flew out into the mist space behind him. The roaring monster was not slow either. He chased Jia Yan in the direction of Jia Yan very quickly. The huge body stepped on the ground, making a deafening sound. It was a huge monster of about 300 meters. It had 3 heads, and each one was extremely ferocious, like a giant dog head. The sharp teeth are ready to bite the big mosquito. This is the venerable level monster in this fog area, and it is also the one that once chased Jia Yan. At this moment, this monster seems to ignore the laws of the territory and has been chasing Jia Yan. The ghost is still here. Jia Yan looked at the monster, and his speed suddenly increased. Ho ho, the 3-headed monster behind roared extremely sharply, and an ability to control the environment was revealed from its body. However, it did not have much control over the big mosquito, and instead caused him to appear. A trace of energy is lost. Jia Yan only felt his body tighten, and then he urged his own condensation to appear with a cold expression. Then this condensation penetrated the surface of his body and appeared directly on the mist and ice attached to the surface of his body. As soon as the two sides came into contact, it was like the ice and snow melted, and both turned into liquid and fell to the ground. When the three monsters saw this scene, the cruel look in their eyes became even more obvious. It seemed that Jia Yan's appearance had slightly shaken their position, and they looked like they wanted to kill Jia Yan and then hurry up. Jia Yan obviously also knows this. As an absolute king, it is absolutely impossible for the three-headed monster of the venerable level to allow an existence that can resist his ability to appear, so at this moment, the more Jia Yan shows that he can resist the opponent's control of nature, ability, the more the opponent wants to kill Jia Yan. But it's impossible for Jia Yan to just give up resistance, right? This formed an endless loop, with the pursuers from behind becoming more and more deadly, while Jia Yan's escape became faster and faster. Just as Jia Yan continued to run away, a slightly smaller monster figure suddenly appeared in front of him. He couldn't help but pause. Ho ho! It turned out to be a three-headed monster similar to Jia Yan, a high-level star-level existence. After seeing Jia Yan's appearance, it turned out to be a three-headed monster. He jumped out directly to attack Jia Yan. Although he looked a little frightened when he saw the huge venerable level monster behind Jia Yan, the venerable level monster roared directly while chasing him. After that, the monster seemed to understand and turned towards Jia Yan. A hard impact came. The two sides actually joined forces. Court death. A flash of light flashed in Jia Yan's eyes, and then he stretched out one of his front legs and stabbed the head of the high-level monster in the starry sky. The monster chased Jia Yan and jumped directly into the air. Although the opponent seemed to use some kind of mysterious power and could briefly transform and fly in the air, it was far from comparable to Jia Yan's big Mosquito. At this moment, the opponent saw Jia Yan's attack and had no effective way to dodge it. On the ground, I really can't do much to you, but in the sky, it's not easy to kill you, but it's easy to hurt you. Jia Yan's front foot hit the opponent's head. There is a key point on this head, which is the opponent's mouth. The last time Jia Yan encountered a high-level three-headed monster in the starry sky, the only time the opponent was injured was when he was stabbed in the mouth by Jia Yan. At this moment, Jia Yan he just found the right opportunity and thrust his front foot into the monster's mouth again. Ouch! The three-headed monster spurted out a mouthful of blood. You must know that Jia Yan's attack this time was accompanied by the inertial impact of extremely fast flight. For him, it was more than doubling the already powerful sharpness. The attack at this moment immediately penetrated the opponent's mouth. If it were on the ground, the three-headed monster could have been avoided, but in the air the opponent's movement ability was not good, and he could only end up with a severe head injury. The three-headed monster had no choice. No matter what the three-headed monster at the rear gave orders, it immediately did not dare to stay any longer. It lowered its body height directly downwards, making the big Mosquito's attack again in vain. Jia Yan also had the same purpose. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he shot directly towards the back of the opponent's body. The venerable three-headed monster seemed to be very dissatisfied with the actions of the high-level three-headed monster. When it passed by, it shot out ahead, bit the other head of the high-level three-headed monster, and then fiercely tore it apart hard. Puff! One of the two remaining intact heads of the high-level three-headed monster was directly torn, and then torn off by the venerable level three-headed monster. The other party devoured the head in several mouthfuls, swallowing it whole. But the high-level three-headed monster did not dare to stay. A ray of panic flashed in the last intact head, and then it lowered its head suddenly, rushed into the surface, and fled quickly with footsteps. Jia Yan in front also felt a chill in his heart. You must know that he was chased into the Suawa battleship by a high-level three-headed monster before, and a three-headed monster of this level, for a three-headed monster of the venerable level, was actually bitten off so easily. A head that can be described as extremely terrifying. He no longer had the idea of staying where he was and fighting the opponent directly. The three-headed monsters at the level of venerables are probably stronger than the venerables outside. At least they have a geographical advantage and are stronger than the venerables of Suao's level. Otherwise, why would Suao's team be destroyed before? He is not slow in chasing me. If I encounter a three-headed monster again to help him block me, then I will still be extremely dangerous. Jia Yan analyzed it and then decided to take another risk and escape in the battleship. Huh? What is that? Just when Jia Yan's speed reached its peak, he was flying regardless. With a startled glance in his compound eyes, he suddenly saw a monster about the size of an adult ox on Earth, on a small hill below the sky and the Earth, looking stupidly at him above his head. This monster looks like a duck, with a slender mouth, and 4 bright eyes on the top of his head. However, the eyes feel that there is not much focus, and it does not seem to have any effect. Chaos Fruit. Seeing this scene, Jia Yan was so surprised that he forgot about the venerable monster chasing behind him. You know, this is the 3rd day of his search in this area. Although he has long known that Chaos Fruit is not an easy animal to find, he still became a little suspicious of Suao's words after 3 days. But at this moment, the monster in the picture appeared in his eyes, and he suddenly leaned over in surprise. It will take at least 1 second for the venerable level monster behind me to catch up to me. It is not difficult for me to catch a heaven level monster in 1 second. Jia Yan analyzed it and immediately moved towards the monster. The ox-sized monster flew away. This monster was gray and dusty, and its strength was probably around the peak of the heaven level. Although it was almost the size of an ox, it could only be regarded as a small thing for the big mosquito at this moment. This is the Chaos Fruit that Suao wants so much, and Jia Yan also has great hopes for it. If he can get it, even if he is faced with a head-on battle by the monster behind and suffers a little injury, it will definitely be cost-effective. But things are obviously not that simple. If the Chaos Fruit is so easy to catch, then Suao won't be able to ask Jia Yan to come over and help. The Chaos Fruit didn't seem to have much ability to perceive what was happening in the sky, and seemed a little slow to the arrival of the big mosquito. At this moment, he seemed to just feel some faint vibrations in the sky, so he peeped there. But when Jia Yan hit his head, it was only 50 meters in the air. The monster suddenly noticed something. He let out a strange duck call, and then his body suddenly rushed towards the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 631. His duck beak actually has the ability to burrow into the ground, and even for a large mosquito, the ground in the fog area is extremely hard. There is no resistance at all. He was directly knocked away by it. After that, his whole body was like a fish swimming into the sea, directly into the depths of the earth. Escape? Break it for me. Jia Yan saw the scene and was greatly surprised at how fast the Chaos Fruit drilled into the ground. However, his expression did not give up. Instead, he suddenly increased his strength at this moment and directly faced the Chaos Fruit. The hole in the ground where the Chaos Fruit penetrated was struck hard. Jia Yan knew how hard the ground was. He had tried it before and found that his own strength was not very effective at drilling into the ground. So at this moment, he didn't think how fast the Chaos Fruit could penetrate into the ground. You must know that the other party was just a creature at the pinnacle of heaven. Read the full text of the boom. Jia Yan only had half a second before the Chaos Fruit penetrated the ground, and he also drilled into the big hole he had drilled into. But the next moment, Jia Yan's heart suddenly felt uneasy, because in front of him, the Chaos Fruit actually penetrated into the ground to an unknown depth early, leaving only a dark tunnel for him to see. Far underground, there was a sound that sounded like the underground burrowing machine was turning on crazily. It was obviously the Chaos Fruit. It's so close, No wonder Suao said he couldn't give him a chance to burrow into the ground. Jia Yan's feeling of shock did not last long. He did not even have any thoughts of pursuing, when an attack from behind came. The venerable three-headed monster that had been chasing Jia Yan for a long time was surprised when he saw that Jia Yan actually launched an attack on the chaos fruit here. As a native creature, he knew this. This kind of weak chaos fruit looks weak, but it has no natural enemies in this area. Even if he wants to catch one to satisfy his appetite, it is not that easy. And this foreign monster is stupid enough to want to catch a chaos fruit. It is simply a fantasy. For him, waiting at the entrance of a chaos fruit cave for several years may not necessarily be able to catch a chaos fruit. Although this kind of monster is extremely nourishing to him, and even some high-level starry sky-level beings can use the effect of chaos fruit to increase their strength to the venerable level, there are almost no three-headed monsters that can catch a chaos fruit. None of their local monsters can catch the chaos fruit. How can they catch this foreign monster if they don't understand each other's habits? The only consequence is to waste time with the chaos fruit and be killed by him when he gets the chance. The venerable level monster was aiming at Jia Yan's back and biting it. His target was Jia Yan's long abdomen. He had never seen this kind of creature, but he had eaten an alien starry sky before. Super monster, it was a day when the fog dissipated a few decades ago, and after eating the meat of outside creatures that day, he could no longer eat other food. The wonderful meaty texture was simply he missed it very much. This is also the real reason why he pursued Jia Yan and refused to let go of the female student's male teacher. What a wonderful thing it would be to bite off the opponent's entire body from the abdomen and let that wonderful sensual feeling bloom from your mouth. Thinking of this, I felt saliva flowing from the huge mouth I bit down. The three heads of the three-headed monster actually have different consciousnesses. Although after reaching the level of the venerable, the consciousness of the three-headed monster is somewhat concentrated, but at this moment, the other two heads are a little ready to devour such delicious food. For them, the competition with the main head is no longer a day or two, but they also understand that if the three heads quarrel at this moment, the delicious food in their mouths may escape, so at this moment they just watch and want to fight. It's also a matter of waiting. Jia Yan felt the killing intent behind him, but he was not surprised at all. Venerable level, let me see how powerful you are. There was a sense of eagerness in Jia Yan's eyes. Although he knew that he would definitely be unable to defeat the venerable level, at this moment, he still had a feeling of exploring the opponent's strength. For Big Mosquito, these three-headed monsters at this moment seem to be a mountain that cannot be crossed. You must know that similar feelings have never appeared in Big Mosquito's previous life. His strength has always been to crush enemies with ease. At this level, he was naturally unconvinced that these three monsters had been chasing him for so long. Ouch! The monster's bloody bite came, but before that, Jia Yan's body violently jumped out of the big hole, and then shot away to the side. But this is the ground. Although the body of the three-headed monster is many times larger than Jia Yan, the speed did not feel bloated at all. Looking at Jia Yan's escape direction, the opponent's speed also expanded, directly aiming at the escape direction of the Big Mosquito, and suddenly closed his mouth. Click. The three-headed monster's self-confidence is extremely strong, because he used similar methods to kill foreign monsters from decades ago that were more powerful than the monster in front of him. There will be no exception, he will definitely bite him to death. Thinking of the delicious food that would bloom in his mouth later, his saliva flowed even more. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a little alert in his heart. In front of his biting mouth, a light and shadow as fast as lightning struck hard. It turns out to be the hind legs of a giant mosquito. Jia Yan naturally calculated that the opponent would bite him. After he found that his speed on the ground was not faster than the opponent, or even slower, he reacted. He did not fully believe in the defensive power of Zhi Zanlin's defense at this moment. He struck out with his hind foot, trying to contain the opponent for a moment. As a strong man who has learned many strong fighting methods, Jia Yan now has more rational tactics and more reasonable methods in his battles. For him, sometimes they are also life-saving methods. The monster obviously thought of Jia Yan's previous counter-attack against the high-level three-headed monster. At this moment, he felt that his mouth might not be able to resist the opponent's hind foot thrust, and he immediately closed his mouth in frustration. Of course, he didn't think Jia Yan's stabbing could cause him too much damage. He just didn't want to get a little injured by the food, just like a human before eating delicious food. If his mouth was hurt a little, then the delicious taste is different, so I definitely don't like it. After all, Jia Yan was able to escape even though the other party didn't realize it. Humph. You really look down on me. Jia Yan's eyes were filled with coldness, and then he directly unfolded his body. In fact, his hind feet did not have the ability to stab, but compared to his front feet, his hind feet were much more powerful. At this moment, the tightly stretched body suddenly kicked the opponent's closed mouth. Puff! The whole space seemed to resound with the sound of rockets erupting, and a flame appeared on the ground due to friction. It turned out that Jia Yan kicked the opponent in the mouth and jumped directly into the air. His body relied on the reaction force to fly away. When the three general-level monsters saw this scene, their eyes suddenly flashed with anger. He felt that he was being played by the monster in front of him. At this moment, he was suddenly angry and spewed out of his mouth. This is the opponent's poisonous mist. However, the appearance of this poisonous smoke is not at the same level as the high-level three-headed monster Jia Yan encountered before. The poisonous mist sprayed by the other party is really like a giant dragon spraying flames. The air that has just been sprayed here, and the whole thing burned. Bear. An explosion of flames in the sky and earth chased Jia Yan's back, spreading throughout his body. At the same time, Jia Yan also felt that the opponent's ability to control the world was greatly enhanced, and then his speed actually stagnated for an instant. The flames from behind burned his body. The opponent's flames were not hot enough for a large mosquito. What was fatal was the poisonous mist in the opponent's flames. Jia Yan's body, which was already feeling a little uncomfortable in the mist, suddenly fell into drowsiness. His body didn't seem to be easily resistant to the other party's attack. At this moment, his whole body was a little drowsy, and was even more critical. When Jia Yan came out of the dizzy feeling, he was surprised to feel that the three-headed monster behind him had bitten a section of his abdomen. Snort! A sharp pain spread through his body. Fortunately, although the opponent's teeth were sharp, a blue color suddenly appeared on the surface of Jia Yan's body. At the same time as this blue color appeared, his defense instantly improved a lot, and then his body became completely, it seems like gold and iron, extremely hard. The main head of the three-headed monster bit Jia Yan's abdomen. He was happy to think that he had succeeded, but what he didn't expect was a piece of hard body that his teeth could not break. However, the power of his teeth was still too great, leaving a wound that exuded a strange smell in the prey's abdomen. In this wound, azure blue floats, but their repair power is still too slow. They can only make emergency repairs while exuding power. The president enters the game for love. Roar! Unexpectedly, this smell stimulated these three monsters, and the surprise in the other's eyes became even higher. It turned out that he felt that the flesh and blood of the prey in front of him seemed to be incredibly helpful to him. If it devours the other party, maybe a great being that has never appeared in this mist will be born. The three-headed monster is going crazy. As a monster here, why doesn't he know that the strongest monster here can only reach the level of a venerable? He even vaguely understands that there is a wider world outside, but as a monster in this mist creatures, he dare not go out, because if they go out, their bodies will suffer irreparable injuries, and they will die in a moment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 632. And if he can reach a further level of existence, then he can go to the extremely vast outside world and swallow up all kinds of delicious life. The three-headed monster was extremely coveted. Read the full text of the latest chapter at mianhuatang.la. What's more, the smell of the monster in front of him was the most fragrant creature he had ever seen in his life. He didn't know how delicious the smell would be. Eat. 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 The three-headed monster at the level of a venerable looked at Jia Yan with deep longing. But when he glanced at the body of the monster he had bitten, he was suddenly a little shocked. You must know that he knew that the sharpness of his teeth was an extremely terrifying threat to beings of the same level, but at this moment, he was biting. Can the strange energy be blocked? In other words, has his strength declined since he hasn't done anything in decades? The three-headed monster at the level of the venerable was so angry that he wanted to bite him fiercely, but Jia Yan also recovered from the surprise of being injured at this moment. Not only did he come back to his senses, the injury he had not experienced for a long time made a ruthless luster appeared in his eyes. You must know that Jia Yan has been alive all this time because he survived without too much pressure to survive. As an evolved beast, his pressure to survive has not reached its peak even in the most dangerous times. But it was different now. The other party bit out several bloody holes in the hard body of the big mosquito with one bite. His mutated red bloodshot that had not been seen for a long time suddenly gushed out through the wound. This terrible pressure made Jia Yan want to survive. The power surges up. Boom. There was an explosion of power throughout the world, and the big mosquito's body struggled fiercely in the opponent's mouth. Unexpectedly, the opponent's big mouth was obviously used to the struggle of prey. As soon as Jia Yan struggled, the opponent's bite force suddenly increased. Jia Yan found that his body was bitten harder by the opponent's bite force, and he also understood that his own strength was probably far different from the opponent's. At this moment, he gave up using brute force to escape, and instead urged use your brainwave power. Brainwave power is not available in this area. The opponent's resistance to brainwave power must not be high. My survival will depend on brainwave power. Jia Yan's brainwave power was greatly restricted by the fog space, but that didn't mean it was completely unusable. Especially after such a long period of time, his brainwave power was still extremely impressive. Boom. Immediately, his brainwave power fired fiercely, and then the three-headed monster let out a shrill scream. How did this monster know that there is such a thing as brainwave power in the universe? Although for monsters at the level of Starry Sky Lord, even if the brainwave power is not involved, for them, the brain's resistance is extremely powerful, but it cannot withstand it. The impact of Shang Jia Yan's brainwave power was terrifying. At this moment, his head felt like being pricked by countless sharp needles, and the pain was extremely painful. Lightning Summoner. The unexpected blow caused the monster to jump back in fright. Boom. Jia Yan quickly moved his feet, and then his body suddenly flew up. The three-headed monsters recovered quickly. They recovered from the dizziness after being startled for a moment. When the big mosquito flew to a height of more than 100 meters, his body also flew up, biting in the air behind Jia Yan. But Jia Yan was prepared after all, and he had no chance to bite Jia Yan directly this time. The big mosquito dodged in the air, and then increased its flying speed with a hint of hatred in its compound eyes. So close. After the monsters behind him got farther and farther away and the roars became quieter and quieter, Jia Yan's speed slowed down. For him, this crisis was completely at a disadvantage. Jia Yan can't think of any way to deal with this venerable level monster. It seems that it won't be able to reach his strength in a short time. Fortunately, my defense is pretty good, and the brainwave power can do enough damage to the opponent. Otherwise, it would be dangerous this time. Jia Yan looked at the fog behind him with some fear. The three-headed monster seemed to be because of him. The speed was slow due to the brainwave power attack. At this moment, the flying speed could not be compared with Jia Yan, and he fell directly to the rear of an unknown distance. In front of Jiayan, the huge battleship hill also appeared in front of him. Because of the appearance of the chaos fruit before, he didn't go here to avoid it, but thinking about it, the venerable level monster is not so easy to deceive. If the other party suspects that the mountain is Jiayan's foothold, maybe even the battleship might also be in danger. Rumble, rumble. A cave entrance appeared at the bottom of the mountain. The big mosquito looked a little unsightly, and slowly walked into the cave entrance with a cold mosquito face. You're back. The one standing in front of him was Na Suao's flying monster body. There was a hint of shock in his eyes at this moment. Have you encountered a three-headed monster at the level of a venerable? He asked solemnly. That's right, Suao, now I strongly doubt your sincerity in cooperation. You actually told me so little about the three-headed monster at the venerable level. You seem to have reduced the other party's strength. If it weren't for me this time, if you are lucky, you might die there. Tell me, can we continue this kind of cooperation? Jia Yan looked at the other party coldly, although the danger he encountered before was caused by his greedy pursuit of the chaos fruit. But Suo Wu really didn't make it clear about the strength of the three-headed monster at the venerable level. Otherwise, Jia Yan wouldn't have taken such a risk directly. There is a gap in strength between the monsters at the venerable level. How do I know which three-headed monster you will encounter? Besides, if I was so indifferent to the strength of the three-headed monster at the venerable level, I would have died long ago. After all, I am the same as you in this area, and my strength is suppressed a lot, Suao said to Jia Yan, looking a little aggrieved. Jia Yan's heart froze. Suao seemed to be right. If he knew every three-headed monster at the venerable level, it would mean that he had dealt with every one of them for decades. That would not be possible. Fortunately, he died decades ago. How could he still be alive today? Forget it, let me tell you a piece of news. I saw a chaos fruit. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have encountered this danger, Jia Yan said lightly. What? Tell me where you saw it. Upon hearing this, Suao quickly approached Jia Yan without any cover-up, and the extreme longing in his eyes almost turned into reality. Jia Yan looked coldly at the old monster swallowed by desire, and the coldness in his heart became even more. The world is in chaos. The fog area only occupies less than a small area of the entire planet, but it has given birth to one of the most powerful races in the entire planet, and that is the three-headed monster clan in the fog area. In this area, monsters are looking back one after another. The entire area seems to be a little unstable these days. For the weak three-headed monster, they have been in fear all day long, while for the powerful three-headed monster, they have been in fear all day long. For the three-headed monster, it feels like a grand party. A venerable level man in the central area actually announced a message that any three-headed monster that could learn the traces of an outside monster would be favored by him and become his favorite. This was an opportunity to leap to the Dragon Gate in one fell swoop. It is a grand event for most three-headed monsters with strength above the heaven level. As for the 1 or 3 monsters below the heaven level, they don't even have any wisdom at all, and it is impossible to understand the meaning of these words, so for them, there is no need to listen to this grand event. Ho 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 ho. In the entire area, the three-headed monsters that originally had clearly divided territories were crawling away in all directions. If they met one by one, it didn't matter whether they had crossed the border or not. For them, although they had wisdom, it was impossible to follow them. Really intelligent creatures generally have the mind to engage in intrigues when performing tasks, so at this moment, there was a harmonious scene with less fighting in the entire area. Suddenly, the shadow of a monster flashed across the sky quickly. Ho ho ho, a three-headed monster roared violently. Bang, 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 the 3 monsters in the entire area seemed to understand the meaning of the roar, and they all gathered towards this place. But when they arrived, the flying monster had already disappeared. Not long after, an extremely huge monster with an aura that reached the level of a venerable came to this area. However, when he saw that there was no shadow of the flying monster in the area, he immediately angrily killed several of the monsters on the spot. Heaven level 3-headed monster killing. Although these 3-headed monsters have primitive language beyond my expectation, their brains are still too primitive. The strategy they came up with is actually to report my appearance. Not long after the monster left, a flying monster quickly returned to this area, looking at the open area below where not even a monster appeared. For the 3 heads, the IQ under the monster has been despised. The latest chapter of the magician's painting. Okay, this is already the 5th day of our investigation. Since the chaos fruit appeared once on the first day, the other party has not appeared in the past 5 days. I don't know if he is still in this area. It is simply disturbing. People are a little anxious. Who is this flying monster if it's not Jia Yan? At this moment, his body shape was almost healed compared to the previous few days. Even Suawa was surprised that his resistance to the poison of the 3-headed monster was so strong. Of course, Jia Yan is an evolved beast with excellent repair ability. For him, it took several days to repair his own injuries after using the ultra-advanced repair energy in the battleship. This is what surprised him. This is also for the first time, he felt that the recovery of injuries on his body was slow. Just when Jia Yan thought that there was nothing to be gained by mobilizing the tiger away from the mountain, his eyes suddenly moved. Chaos fruit. The next moment, he made a surprised voice.